Here we go. Little calf, probably in the region of 3 to 4 months old. Buffalo don't have a strict breeding season, but when the rains start to come from sort of the end of November all the way up into the end of March, we'll see a massive increase in births. I'm hoping that the wind that's blowing, that you can hear so strongly, is going to blow these clouds away for good. Although all reports seem to indicate that we're going to be in for cloudy, chilly days over the next few days. The rest of the herd is probably coming across from Arethusa. But they're very quiet. Not much mooing going on, as we usually hear, could be because of the wind. Here we've got a nice, healthy female. See what buffalo should be looking like. Now, in this area, there's always the possibility that all of these animals carry TB, or tuberculosis, and for the most part, it doesn't affect them too seriously. They might shorten their lifespan slightly unless it really becomes active. Now, I mentioned that this thin female might be stricken with TB. She could also have something like corridor disease, or the swelling around the membranes of the heart. She could also just be very, very old and struggling with her teeth. And I mentioned that she might well become lion food in the next few days, just because she is in such bad condition. Her stomach also looks very distended, which makes me wonder about it as well. She could also have some kind of cancer or growth in her abdomen. But if it is TB and she does get eaten by lions, Gerry van der Walt was wondering, if they eat her, will they then catch TB? And it is a possibility if they hunt her and take her down. I have heard reports that animals will know and try to avoid animals with TB, but I think that's more in the case of rabies or anthrax cases, where predators will avoid them and avoid eating them. With TB, the lions could well get it. It does pass between the different species, and it will be usually carried in the mucus or the saliva of the animal and pass through. So Gerry, I hope that answers your question as to whether or not it transmits between lions and buffalo. It will, and it does happen. And there's always a possibility with any of the animals in this area that they may be carriers of TB, might not necessarily be active. Now, it is wonderful to spend time with breeding herds of buffalo. However, I know that Scott had them a couple of days ago, and we still have a mission to get to Arethusa and find out what's been happening on that side, and whether or not the guides have relocated Shadow and Madiba with their kill. And for now, I'm going to leave this buffalo herd, and while I make my way across to Arethusa, across Triple M, I'm going to cross back across to Brent and his Nkuhuma Pride, and I will be back with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, huge apologies for the gremlins we're facing this morning. We're still with winklewoomers who have not moved a muscle. And we did hear from Tammy, one of our zoomies, that there might be a hyena moving towards us. So I have been keeping an eye for that. Thanks for that update, Tammy. I do appreciate it. But at the moment, the lions are very much flat cats. So I'm going to put it through to you guys. Should we stay or should we go? I'm not sure if they're going to move. We can definitely come back later and drive to check. Maybe we should go see if we can find something else. So you guys send through whether you would like to stay or go to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Go look at that lioness with her back to us, Genre to the right, on her flank there. You can see what looks like some scars, a little bit, rump rather than flank. Yeah, that looks like a definite bite mark, and I think that was there before I left, and it looks like it has healed quite nicely. Again, it's very difficult to judge whether that's come from feeding or from an argument with the Birmingham boys. I think that doesn't look like too serious at all, so wouldn't worry about that at all. As we can see, these are very much flat cats at the moment, and Angie from Portland in Oregon is wondering, are lions mostly nocturnal? Do they sleep during the day? Do they hunt at night? Well, actually, lions are opportunists. They'll hunt at any time possible, but generally they do hunt at night more than they do during the day. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Well, today is probably not one of those examples, but they have a lot of trouble dealing with heat. So they generally move around a lot more in the cooler times because their body is much better able to deal with the heat. They're unable to sweat, and that is why they generally will rest during the day and they'll pant and cool down that way. There's another slightly more complicated reason, and that is due to evolution. Lions and humans actually we are what we are because of lions to a degree, and lions are what they are because of us. So lions are the dominant nocturnal predator, we are the dominant diurnal predator. So we evolved to not compete at the same times, and human beings are one of the only animals that is able to run a marathon and deal with excessive heat. So we are able to, by sweating and by putting water on our heads or whatnot, we have a bunch of various methods that we can deal with heat that are not available to a lot of the animals. So about 200,000 years ago is when we came into being in our current form, and we evolved into what is now Homo sapien, which is what we are currently, and lions became Panthera leo. So at that time there were giant lions and saber-toothed cats, as well as giant hyenas, which were about the size of a waterbuck, so completely massive. And hyenas also fill in with the evolution. They're also about the same age as us and lions. And very interesting enough that lions became the only social cat because they are competing with us, and also because they're competing with these solitary large other predators. So obviously, as a group, you had a much better chance of defending against a large solitary predator. So they've developed that social structure also to compete with the other social predators around, which are hyenas and us. So at about that stage, at that time in terms of large predators, all these different social predators evolved, and all formed different niches in the environs. The lions definitely became the kings and queens of darkness, and us of the light. And hyena developed into that very unusual niche that they filled, which was somewhere between us. They are also predominantly nocturnal, and that is also, again, to more than likely avoid us a lot more, because hyenas do have a much better system at dealing with heat. Their bodies are much more capable of dealing with heat than the lions, and they do utilize water pans and stuff like that to cool off. But hyenas pretty much have been scavenging off us and off lions and off all the other predators for a very long time. And you will notice when you are on foot or walking that hyenas are not nearly as scared as lions, for example. Lions will take off like a bad smell when they see you walking on foot, whereas hyenas will move away from you, but they're not particularly worried. They sort of know you can't catch them. And at night, if you chase a hyena away from around the campfire who's trying to steal the rubbish bin, which happens relatively often out here, he'll just run 10 meters and then just stop and turn around and look at you. So very interesting how evolution has put us all in very different little niches. Okay, so guys, you have spoken and we shall listen. The majority of you say it is time to move along, see what else we can find. And while we do that, Vince from Texas is just wondering what my thoughts are on the Birmingham Coalition and how they're taking over and what's going on with the lions in the Northern Sabi Sands at the moment. Let's just see if I can sneak through this gap quickly. We'll go past Junior on the way out. So over the last few weeks we've been really privileged to be right sort of in the center of a pride or a coalition takeover, and the Matimba males have sort of come to an end of their reign. Amazingly enough, I saw in an update that one of the Matimba males was seen south of the Sand River, and as far as I know they've never really gone that far. So unfortunately, as far as I know from the other lions around, that if he keeps on in the direction he was heading, he's going to get a very unpleasant surprise of another coalition of males down there. So I mean, I wouldn't say the battle is over as such yet, but I would definitely say, well, the war has been won. The battles might not be over. There might be still quite a few battles that happen, but I do think if the Matimbas are pushing that far south now, it is unfortunately game over for them. And that's not to say they might come back and have another attempt. There we go. Watch out there, Jean-Andre. Because what's probably going to happen is that they're going to end up down there, they're going to bump into another set of lions, and they're going to come running back up north and bump into the Birminghams. So I know for a lot of you who are big fans of the Matimbas, and there have been such great lions for us to watch on the safaris. Unfortunately their time at the top is over, and we must remember this is nature, and it is a good thing. It is a very good thing, because they are getting to the stage, if we take the sub-adults from the kahumas and whatnot, we would be now almost getting to a stage, and they're getting close, not quite mating age yet, but if the Matimbas were to carry on for another year or two, there's a very good chance they would end up mating with what is possibly their daughters. So this is the reason that these violent takeovers happen, and it's to try and keep genetic diversity, and that's nature looking after itself. But back now to the lions specifically here. The Birminghams have the potential to become quite a nice and dominant coalition for an extended period, being 5 lions. But in saying that, often with these larger coalitions, they will split, and 2 or 3 will stay in this area, another 2 will stay in that area, which happened with the Matimbas. There's the northern Matimbas and the southern Matimbas, and as happened with the Mapojos, who are one of probably the best known of the coalitions. And although the Mapojos seem to hold territory alongside each other, and when there was trouble in the land, they did come to each other's aid. And the Matimbas seem to have drifted so far apart that another coalition of males snuck in the gap between them. But I mean, if we look at in terms of hectareage that the Birminghams have covered, and they have gone quite a long way to the west to Ottawa. They were chased back by the Majingalans, so they haven't really ventured that far. And the Majingalans, if I remember correctly, is still a 4-lion coalition, so a little bit more imposing than the 2 Matimbas. But they seem to have definitely taken over Bofashoek, Djuma, and they haven't gone on to Alfuzo, but as of it, not as far west as the Majingis. And then also Torchwood to the east in Koro, Chitwa, that whole southeastern section as well. So in total, I mean, they've got the majority of the northern Sabi Sands now, which, as far as my lion history, which might be a bit incorrect, so if it is, just let me know, goes that very traditionally the Matimbas. I know there's new males coming in from the Manuleti, and you never know whether these guys are going to actually make it or not till about probably a good year in after the sort of initial stuff. And very interestingly, some new research with lions and also with leopards has found that first set of mating that these lionesses do is actually a false estrus, and they don't actually get impregnated from it. And the thought process behind this is that they're actually waiting for the lions to establish themselves. So there's no point in mating with someone who's going to be chucked out in 3 weeks and having cubs, because then those next set of cubs are going to be killed, etc. So they will actually almost do 2 full estrus cycles before they will actually get pregnant from the mating. So I think it's a very interesting coping mechanism. So guys, we might have a little bit of signal breakup as we go through this dip, but we'll go through it quite quickly. So it's amazing how nature's got these little sort of fixes amongst it to try and ensure that the sort of next generation will survive. So the females will sort of wait. So now if the Birmingham start mating, I haven't heard if they have been mating, I'm not sure. Genre, have they been mating in the last 5 days? We don't think so. Unlikely with the amount of upheaval, but you never know. Sometimes that, especially if there's a possibility of all the Styx cubs have been killed, the Styx lionesses will stop running from them so much and actually stop trying to look for them and mate with them. So it's going to be very interesting to hear and watch what's going on. But that first coupling is probably going to result in no cubs, so I wouldn't get your hopes up for cubs in the next sort of 3 months. It will probably be the second, so we're probably looking, if the Birminghams are successful, their first set of cubs, and that's only if mating happens now. I mean, so just if it happens sort of now, our first set of cubs are going to be sort of in the next 6 months. So really interesting how they are able to have these little controlling mechanisms that ensure survival of the species. So, chatting about when we're going to have cubs, Janice from Wisconsin, he's wondering what is the gestation period of a lion. It's around 90 days, 90 to 100 days, so around 3 months. Very, very short. And you'll find that in a lot of your carnivore species, lion, leopard, wild dog, hyena and stuff, they have these very short gestations because there's a very high mortality rate amongst the babies. So they are able to do a quick turnaround of cubs if need be, if they do lose cubs. So Scotland James out on the tracking team mentioned that they had some female leopard tracks towards the east. So we're going to go slowly bumble into that area and see if we can find any tracks, or hopefully find a leopard. We're not going to be seeing much general game in this cold and windy weather. They are much more sensible than us, and they are hunkered down. probably lying out somewhere in a thicket or whatnot, trying to keep out of the wind. Also, with this strong wind, it's a bit more dangerous for the general game because their hearing is impaired and also their smell is impaired because the wind is very gusty. So they would try not move, and if they're ruminants, they will be happily chewing the cud and getting their nutrients that way. As it warms up, they probably will start moving out and feeding, but I think because of this cold weather, it's going to obviously warm up quite a bit later. We were just chatting about a bit of evolution and the animals that used to roam this land before us. Anna Marie was just saying, wow, she didn't realize there were giant hyena. Strangely enough, Anna Marie, there were also running hyena or hunting hyena that were built far more slender, sort of much more similar to a wild dog, even though they were hyenas and they were out competed. They're obviously just one of those little failed branches on the evolutionary tree. But there were some incredible animals around in about that 500 to 200,000 years ago, and they have changed a lot. And strangely enough, the one who was there, seen it all, the impala, unchanged for 1.6 million years. Speaking of antelope, we've got what looks to be a kudu, or I can't really see through the bush on the other side of this little drainage line. So we found one who's hungry enough to be out on the move. Looks like some inyala. Very fluffy inyala. And well spotted genre. See, now they're in the drainage line. We're not getting a lot of that wind that you're getting up above on the crest, so a bit more protected, a bit warmer down here. Let's see. How's that there? A little group of waterbuck, and there's some inyala around. They're so fluffy, waterbuck. For me, out of all antelope species, they almost look like they're quite innocent. They're sort of very doe-eyed antelope with the freshly painted toilet seat on their bottoms. So down in this drainage line, a little bit protected from the wind and the weather. Left of that waterbuck as well, and the camouflage is working quite well. Just make it out there through the thickets. We're going to move forward to have a look at the inyala that are probably out in the open. So I was hoping that the cold weather was over. Those of you who watch regularly realize I'm not a big fan of being cold. The only time I can put up with being cold in the rain is when we're out here with the animals. And if there's no animals, then you won't find me leaving the comfort of a very warm place. Okay, so we're just going to pop around, and it's going to be the best view around this gardenia that the inyala are underneath. There we go. So it's quite nice. It's sort of in this arch of this gardenia tree. Sorry guys, I just got to be on the radio for a second. Corvus coming. stations who left the Djuma Pride lying up to the north of Gari Dam. There's that 2-track that runs on the eastern side of that small drainage from Mvubu Road, probably 60 meters north from the Mvubu Road on that 2-track. And you can see that wonderful little chevron, that white across her nose. And there, if we have a look in her ears, we can see how many little ticks and whatnot are in there. And you can see she's very fluffed up. I know a lot of you would have heard this before, but a lot of the antelope species will do that. And what they're doing is they're trapping a layer of air between their skin and their fur, and what that does is almost like a blanket, so that air gets trapped there and the body heat warms it up and it creates a little insulative blanket around the animals. That's why on cold mornings they always look quite fluffy. Oh, and you can hear the wind that is above us. So we in this drainage line, we're not actually getting that gusting wind on us, but it is blowing in the trees above us, so passing over the drainage line. And that's probably why we find these animals here now nice and protected from that gusting wind. And Nyala is a browser, so as we watch them feed on the ground, it looks like she's actually eating grass, but she's not. She's picking leaves between the grasses. So at this time of the year, where obviously their feeding is going to be quite limited to what's around. So unlike impala and wildebeest that will be waiting for the beginning of the rains to give birth, Inyala actually give birth throughout the year. And they do have peaks and troughs with the birthing, but generally they will give birth throughout the year. Let's just move forward a little bit. You see that right on the edge of that sort of rise up above the drainage line, and I think they're going to continue to feed along this edge, and we're going to leave them to do so and meander on, see what else we can find. Isn't that wonderful? We've just found this little spot protected from the wind and the cold, and we've got water back, and Inyala taking advantage of that. And you'll see now as we come up out of that, and I mean look at that now. I mean, you can hear it, you can feel it. If you look at the trees around us, a gusting wind, and we've literally moved 5 meters. So I know quite a few of you are wondering about my fishing trip while I was away. Unfortunately, it was definitely not one of my most successful fishing trips that I've ever had, and I managed to only catch one fish. But it was still nice to be up in the mountains. On the last day I was up there, this weather came in and the fishing just went really bad. I think a lot of the fish I lost was due to my incompetence and not the fact that there weren't fish around. It's been a very long time since I fished for trout, and I've been doing quite a lot of fishing for saltwater fish on fly and whatnot, and out of pure habit over the last couple of years, I think this is probably the first time I fished for trout in about 8 years. I actually I saw the trout come up and take it, and I struck like I was striking into a tarpon and just snapped the line. But anyway, I managed to catch one semi-decent size, probably about just over 2 pounds, and we actually brought that back with us, and we ate it for dinner last night. Well, Jean-Andre ate most of it. He likes fish. I like catching them. So it's a good combination there. Wow, it's cold in this wind. And I feel for the cameraman because they're sitting even higher in that wind. I've at least got my bottom half protected by the car. So tough guy is our cameraman. We started the morning with a bang with the Karuma Pride, and Thelma is just letting me know that it's Happy Cat Month in the USA, and she also noted that it's probably Happy Cat Month every month out here on Djuma and Arathusa. And Thelma, I'd have to agree with you, it is definitely Happy Cat Month, if we can find them, of course, and we do try our best, but sometimes those happy cats are very sneaky cats. So with all the lion dynamics happening at the moment, specifically the dynamics between the males, Sibo Siso from Hammanskraal, nice to hear from you again, Sibo Siso. Sibo Siso is wondering, is it been scientifically proven that males with black manes or dark manes are more dominant over the lighter maned counterparts, or is this just based on behavior? Well, Sibo Siso, I just saw something move there. It was a duiker, and it's moving at very high speed, so we'll carry on. So there is an ongoing study where they're doing that with genetics at the moment, and if I remember correctly, it's Dr. Craig Packer and Natalia Borrego from the University of Miami who are doing that at the moment. Oh, what did you spotted? Hello, well spotted, Jean-Andre. There's some wildebeest and waterbuck bulls. But carrying on there with that lion question, Sibasiso, is that so far in the initial studies it does seem to be the case. But with a lot of scientific papers, it's going to take a while before that is documentation's done. It's got to go through lots of different academic things I don't really understand, so it's got to be checked and fact-checked and checked again. But hopefully, I do know both of the researchers are busy doing that, so hopefully maybe I can get a bit of a sneaky inside info on that. Trying to just get a view of him. He's hiding in that woodland, and up here on the wind, you can see the animals a little bit less calm. They're not hanging around, and they're moving away from us. And obviously with the wind, they are feeling a little bit more vulnerable, and they're out in the crest here, so right in the wind. Yeah, that wind gusting. So we're not going to hang around. They are not feeling it too comfortable with this gusting wind. Even if we wanted to hang around, he's not hanging around. So that's a territorial wildebeest bull. Oh, there we go. Nice screenshot. And then off he goes. So I just got a little update, and apparently the Matimba males have been found on Buffalo's Hook, not very far from the Djuma boundary, on a buffalo kill. So really, really interesting, the fact that one was south of the Sand River yesterday and is now already back up here, probably reunited with his coalition mate. And the Birminghams, from where the Matimbas are, probably, I'm guessing 8-9 kilometers. But if the vultures start descending on there, there's a big chance the Birminghams will spot that and head off towards those Matimbas. So very interesting. And as I was saying earlier, it's by no, this sort of, the war is by no means over. I think it will carry on in dribs and drabs, but incorrect. The battle isn't by no means over, but the war has been won by the Birminghams for now. So who knows if new males or somewhere else might arrive, but at the moment it is looking like that the Birminghams have almost completely removed the Matimbas, but as I say that, they're back. So interesting times ahead. Now hopefully if they do come to blows and to a battle, it happens on Djuma. Like Aubrey's the one who found that. Just gonna give James a shot to see where they left those female leopard tracks. Scotty, where did you leave those fuzzy Inga tracks? Okay, copy. So confirm she came west to the north or south of that Hip Hop Falls Junction. Copy, thanks very much. Okay, so Scott says those tracks came into this block here about 200 meters, so probably they're heading west. And they've checked around, but she might have still been moving. So we're going to go have a quick look around on Hippo Pools Road, which leads towards Buffalo's Hook, waterhole, and fingers crossed, either the tracks pop out and we're able to follow them to what's making the tracks, or we'll just find her without doing any of the tracking. So while we continue to try to track this mystery female leopard, we're going to cross across to Jamie, who's with something a little bit similar to what we're looking for, but I'm not going to tell you who.
On a rather cold and windy morning in the Sabi Sands, it's still been quite an exciting event. We've had now 3 out of the big 5 plus hyena cubs, and we have a nice surprise for you, because I know that so many of you were interested in what happened last night on the Arathusa Dam camera, and we have a little bit of an answer to show you, and that answer is sitting tucked away and hidden on Magic Willie just south of the Boerbean Pan. And we have Shadow with a rather full looking belly, and that answer is sitting tucked away and hidden on Magic Willie just south of the Boerbean Pan. And we have Shadow with a rather full looking belly, so whatever may have happened last night with her kill and with the hyenas, she has eaten. And what's even more special is that the now named Madiba, also previously known as Sandile, is probably about 500 meters from where we are now. I haven't seen him yet. He is somewhere just to the south of us, so somewhere tucked away in this drainage line. And we'll be going to find him in just a moment, but first some special time with Shadow, who's decided to go flat. But I promise you it is Shadow. She did stick her head up as we came in. Now, for those of you who might be joining us and not too sure what I was talking about, we had reports that last night Shadow, and it would have been Shadow now that we've seen her and we can confirm it, killed a daker on the Arathusa Dam camera, went and fetched her year-old cub, or just older than a year now, whose name is Madiba, brought him back to the kill. Then there was some action with hyenas and nobody was quite sure if she'd lost her kill that she'd dragged under the lodge deck. But it seems as though whatever happened, she's definitely had something to eat at some point last night. Now we're seeing more and more independence being shown by little Madiba. When I left, during the time that I was on leave, I was closely following the saga that was happening with Shadow. She was mating first with Tingana, then apparently with the Anderson male. And she left Madiba on his own for quite an extended period of time. And to me, that was the last thing I expected. Now, I know that just before I went on leave, a lot of people were asking, because we had that sighting where we were following Shadow and her cub's tracks, and Tingana was following after them. And one of the questions was whether or not he would be following her in order to mate, and at that point I said absolutely not. It would be far too soon for Shadow to be mating. And this is for me a first. I've never heard of a leopard mating so soon with a year-old cub, but apparently it does happen, because it did. And it did mean that Madiba was left on his own for quite a considerable period of time. I'm not sure how many days it was, but he was out on his own. And now you can see Shadow's decided to lie up here, and he's showing some independence and moving off into a different direction. Now, I'm just going to have a look around and see if maybe, as you can see, it's a very, very thick block. I'm just wondering if there's a way I can get in. I have to be very careful. There's a lot of young tambuti trees here, which we do not drive over. It does them They're very, very important trees in terms of the ecosystem and keeping the soil together and protecting the grass layer, especially around these drainage lines. So I don't want to be driving over any of them. And unfortunately, I don't think that there is a way around to get a better visual, unless maybe I could creep. No, I don't think I can creep to the other side. We're just going to have to, at the moment, make do with a couple of spots. But great to see her, and a really nice way to do my first drive back at work, and we've had quite an exciting morning. Now Madiba, or previously known as Sindile, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around the name change. I think it's a brilliant name. Just have to get out of the habit of saying Sindile. He is, now I just have to think about the Arathusa geography for a moment. He is on Safari Donga South. So he is roughly in sort of that direction, probably about 500 meters or so. And we'll be heading off that way in a moment. He's somewhere tucked away in this drainage line. And we have the Arathusa guides to thank for finding him, and Mornay in particular. They located them a little bit earlier just as I came in. And I saw their tracks. They've actually done a lot of movement. So from last night, when they were hunting around the dam camera, they then made their way all the way east towards Parallel Road South and wandered up and down there and then came in this direction. And it could be that if the kill was stolen, I'm not sure what time of night it was last night, but if it was stolen, it could have been that she then had to go, Shadow then had to go and hunt for something different. I would love for her to look up, but I think that the night's activities have exhausted her. And it is largely thanks to our many loyal viewers that we get to hear about these updates. Now, I was not awake at 1:50 last night, but for those of you who were in different time zones, Karen and Curious One, you were telling us all about what happened and the fact that the hyenas moved in, and then there was some conflict between the hippo and the hyena as well. So it sounds like a very action-packed night. It's now probably, I'm not sure what the time is, but probably around 8:30 in the morning, so or 8:15. So it's been about 7 or 8 hours since, so plenty of time for Shadow to have gone and killed something and then moved on and tried to kill something else if it was killed by or stolen by the hyenas. Amazing things about having worked in this area now and having done this job for a couple of weeks. I did have that incredible sighting of Karula where she ate the entire steenbok in less than 20, well maybe less than half an hour, and all that was left was the jawbone, and that was a couple of weeks ago. But it was a really interesting lesson for me as to exactly how fast a hungry leopard can consume a kill if they need to, and how little of it they'll actually leave behind. It was just tufts of hair that she plucked and one jawbone. So it could be that when Shadow started feeding, she had plenty of time to munch her way through. Now I just want to take a moment to listen to the Game Drive channel. They're telling me that he's up and about, and I just want to hear exactly where he's going. That would explain the off-roading sounds that I'm hearing. Now I'm going to see if maybe we can enter that sighting. It could be that he's coming towards us, so I just want to double check on the Game Drive channel first. But let's find out what's happening, and then let's go and see what Madiba has been up to, and if he is on his way here. Let's see. Get a hold of the Game Drive channel. Find out what he's doing. Mornay for Jamie. Any updates on what Madiba's doing, which way he's going? Okay, copy, perfect, thank you. I'll be making my way there. Copy that, thank you very much. Okay, so Mornay tells me that Madiba is also flat, so it must have been a different sighting that they were talking about. Listening with half a brain, but he is just a little bit away. So, since Shadow is fairly flat, and I'm sure you're curious to see how Madiba's looking and if he is as full as his mother is, let's leave her for now. I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon, and go and see if we can find that little cub, who happens to be probably one of my favorite leopards. He was the first one I tracked on foot while I was here, and I've got a little bit of a soft spot for him. I think he's a character. Getting really close to where they picked up on Madiba, and I just need to make sure I don't miss him. Apparently he was lying up under a cluster of tambuti trees, which is a little bit tricky because there's lots and lots of tambuti trees in this area. It's basically like explaining that it's by the tree with leaves. Let's see. Apparently it was just by the pump house, which we just passed. So where is he hiding? Off here because there were vehicle tracks coming off the road. Just gonna stop and listen. Where are you hiding? Okay, a game of hide and seek with little Madiba. Oh, there he is. I found him. He's there. He's just underneath the albizia, just down there to the right. Can you see him, Liam?
He's white. Could that be him?
Yeah, that big tree, the big dead one, just to the right of that on the ground. Yeah, it's to the right there. There he is. Okay, let's try and get a little bit of a better visual, but he is there. Very close to his mother. Now, I know that the fact that his mother disappeared off for so long to go and mate with the other males in the area must have been quite an interesting experience for little Madiba. It's a little bit too soon for him to have been independent. And I know that Lisa G was wondering if maybe it's encouraged a little bit of advanced growth and a bit more independence. So yes, Lisa, I think the fact that Shadow had left him for so long, he is old enough to hunt for himself, and I know that he never looked too hungry while he was on his own. It was definitely very early, and it would have been a chance for him to really develop his independence and his personality. Now, where is going to be the best view? He's tucked away there. We try and shift into low range. I don't want to push Jigger too far into the sand, just because I know that our diff lock at the moment is sort of a little bit shaky. But let's shift forward ever so slightly and try and get a good view. And as I mentioned before, I can't drive over too many tambuertes. If we stay in gear, I'm sure we can make it across this drainage line. There's not going to be any clear view of this little leopard that I can see. He is very tucked away. This is an awkward angle for him, I know. You can see his hiding place. And little Madiba is giving us a wonderful, good lesson into how well leopard camouflage works, which they do seem to be very good at every now and again. Just wondering what the view would be like from the other side. Just want to see, there's another vehicle approaching, but I think it's a tractor coming past, not somebody trying to make their way into the sighting. Because if they are, they're going to find life a little bit tricky. That side's too thick. But great opportunity for us to know that both Shadow and her cub, Madiba, are safe and sound after the night's interesting activities. Sounds like they had quite the evening. Now, we're going to be brave about this. And make our way into this drainage line. I'm not going to push too much further in due to our somewhat shaky diff lock. But there we go, we've got a slightly better view. It always amazes me how comfortable these leopards are around vehicles. Just having a look. Now, you can see he's on alert slightly, he's just looking around. And after the night that they had, I don't blame him. And apparently when the hyena came in to steal the kill, it made no sound. And Curious One was wondering if that was normal, if that is the way that it often happens. And it's difficult to know in terms of that situation. I would say yes, it is probably normal, especially when one solitary hyena is coming in to steal a small, or if there's very little meat left, then it could well come in stealthily. Probably doesn't want to share with other hyenas or alert other hyenas of the clan to that fact that it had a kill. or had stolen a kill. It could well be it was just going slightly into stealth mode. If it had been a bigger kill that they had stolen from a leopard, or they had killed themselves, that's when you start to get the real giggly noises of the hyenas and the contact call between clan members. That's why they're known as the laughing hyena. The noises that they make sound very much like they're laughing, and that's very typical of feeding excitement. At least we do have something of a view of what is probably, or who is probably my favorite leopard. I think that's a decision I've made. I think he's going to be my favorite of the ones that I've seen so far, obviously. And it's so exciting to think that I've got so many other individuals to get to see and get to meet. I think my soft spot for him largely stems from the fact that he was the first leopard I tracked on foot here, and actually probably the leopard that I've seen the most while I've been working for Wild Earth. Something stuck between his toes. That's what he's licking away. Now he's sitting fairly far away from where his mom is, and he's showing more and more independence, and that will continue to increase over the next few months. And we mentioned about Lisa's question as to whether or not he will have grown up a little bit faster or matured a little bit faster because of this. And I do think that will be the case. And what will be very, very interesting is if this mating was successful, so this last estrus session that Shadow had, whether or not she's then going to be due to have cubs in the next 3 months or so, in which case he really will have to gain a serious amount of early independence. Now, it's not uncommon for female leopards to tolerate their previous offspring around them whilst they have new cubs. And I know that there's even cases of older leopards having, or I think it was one particular case that was told to me, where a grandmother leopard adopted the cub of her daughter, even though she already had a cub of a slightly different age. So it's possible for 2 cubs of different ages to be around together, but I don't think that would be the situation in this case. I think that Madiba is just a little bit too old for it to work out that way. I think that Shadow would keep separate from him, maybe tolerate him to join her at kills, maybe, with the younger cubs. But you would probably find that once she does have cubs, if she does have cubs, he will be out on his own and forced to look after himself far younger than would necessarily be the case in an ordinary situation. And he'll probably still hang around the area. He'll have to learn to hunt successfully for himself as often as possible. But I would be surprised. However, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that there are chances of fertilization. It doesn't actually happen every time a female goes into estrus. So there is a possibility, and I would even say quite a high likelihood, with her first estrus after raising a cub, I think personally there's a high chance that she won't actually fall pregnant. So she'll still spend the normal amount of time with Madiba. I could of course stand corrected on that. It's entirely possible that I'm wrong, but just a personal opinion, I'm going to go with it's more likely that she won't conceive than she will conceive. That's supposition and a guess, but I'll put it out there. and then she'll probably be mating again in a couple of weeks if she wasn't successful. So we'll know if she comes into estrus and she starts mating with other males in the next few weeks that this mating session was not successful. And as I mentioned before, if she does have if this is a successful mating and she does have cubs in the next 3 months, I don't think that he's going to go too far away from her. He's going to try and stay as close as possible and try and follow his mother to the kills. And it could well be that she would share them with him. I wouldn't say that's unlikely. I know that on the reserve I used to work at, occasionally we would see the female, one of the most relaxed females, and her oldest cubs who had since become independent, and I saw her with 2 young cubs and then the older cub not too far away. So it would be highly likely that he would stick around. And the females do tend to be much more tolerant of their male offspring as opposed to their female offspring. So he has got that in his favor. Will be able to stick around. Possibly she might be a little bit more tolerant of his presence. Now what I have learnt in my experiences of tracking this particular leopard is that the best place to start looking for him is usually on a termite mound. And I know that Lisa, good morning, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. I hope that you are enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying my first drive back. Now I know that Lisa's mentioned that he's very often either out in the open or most often up on a termite mound. And that's definitely where I always start when I go looking for him. And at the moment he's tucked away in quite a thick drainage line. Now I will say that most of my leopard sightings in my life have been in an area like this with the leopard on the ground tucked away. But Sandile does seem to be the exception to that rule. And probably he's starting to feel a bit more secure. I think he likes the termite mounds because it gives him a nice view of whatever's been coming his way. And I think he's starting to feel a bit more secure. But it could also be that this wind and this weather is what's put him close to a drainage line. He's tucked away to hide away from this cold, and also the fact that with this wind his senses are a little bit compromised. He might be feeling a little bit nervous and wanting to be hidden away in the thickest undergrowth he can find. That being said, I have seen him in a couple of drainage lines before, underneath tambuti trees or tucked away in this way. And there was one particular sighting where I actually left him a couple of weeks ago, tucked in basically just a monkey orange thicket. So I think it could be that it's slightly biased, the fact that we often see him on termite mounds or open areas, because it's just that little bit easier to find them when they are on termite mounds or open areas. I do think he does favour them, but there's probably a slight bias there, because it's easier to track and find them when they're in those kinds of places. It gets a little bit more tricky when you're looking in a drainage line like this one. And you will have seen as we drove in and we sort of had to really struggle and look to find him. And if he'd been in a slightly thicker area, we probably wouldn't have. But a very interesting point and a good observation. And it's one of the reasons that these live drives are so valuable, because you can learn by watching over the course of months and months, as opposed to just a couple of days. He's having a big clean. Maybe tidying up his fur from last night's feeding activities. He really is a very good looking leopard. I think he's going to be absolutely breathtaking when he's reached his adult size, and already he's looking like he's grown in the 2 weeks that I haven't seen him. I noticed when I was following him just before I went on leave that he's already developing that dewlap flap of skin in the front and getting a powerful neck and shoulders. I think he's going to be quite a big boy. As we're watching him grooming himself and just using his teeth to just nibble actually slightly at his skin, and although we don't see it as clearly as we do on things like buffalo, he could well have ticks in that fur that he's just aiming to pull out and dislodge, because they will itch like crazy. So leopards will also be tick carriers, not the huge ones that we see on buffaloes, but some of the smaller ones. And grooming is a good way of getting rid of them. Spending a special time with little Madiba, or not so little Madiba anymore. He's getting to be quite a lot bigger. I know that everybody's a little bit concerned about what the future holds for him, especially if he does have to gain independence a little bit longer. Now apparently Karula has been a little bit more tolerant of her, or very tolerant of all of her male sons. Now Shadow is Karula's daughter, so hopefully that is what she's going to do, or that kind of behavior she's going to show Madiba over the next few months. She'll hopefully take after her mother and give him a little bit of a head start in life, even if she does have a new set of cubs. Anyway, we still have quite a flat cat, and I know that Brent has headed back towards the Nkuhuma Pride, which is great to have on our property. And for now, we're going to go back across and see what they've been up to, and we'll be back again just a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, very little has changed here with the Nkuhumas. The only thing is Junior has come to join the rest of the pride, and they are all very tired kitties by the looks of things. So we did manage to find an update about those female tracks that leopard tracks we're looking at. They do look like it was possibly Karula, but unfortunately they went into a very thick drainage section, and we weren't able to follow any further. But also I've got some more very interesting updates from the other guides while we were away to do with lions. And since we're sitting with lions, I think it's quite appropriate we chat about them for a little bit. So, as we said, the Djuma timber boys have been found on a buffalo kill. Now, interestingly enough, yesterday there was one Birmingham male on that buffalo kill. So the Djuma timber have chased a single Birmingham male off that buffalo kill. That single Birmingham has been found with a Styx lioness, and I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, I didn't see it myself, and unless I see it myself, I always a little bit cautious about information. And they think it's the lioness that has the remaining cub, but she is trying to mate with the Birmingham male, and that's very interesting, and that makes me think possibly that remaining cub might have unfortunately passed along and gone somewhere else, no longer of our world. And apparently the Birmingham male is having no interest. He's not trying to kill her or whatnot, but he's not interested in mating with her at the moment. So very interesting little dynamics happening at the moment. So very interesting. So we know that lioness is an adult lioness with him, that I think is the Styx lioness who's had the cub. So it is not the missing sub-adult from the Nkahumas. As we spoke about a bit earlier, I did think that lioness was too young to be hanging around with the Birminghams. Very comfy lions. It's quite a good spot for them to rest up. There is a possibility of animals as it warms up heading down towards the waterhole. But in this cool weather, there is a possibility they might move during the day. I hope not, and hopefully they are here for the sunset safari as well. But what a great first day back for Jamie and myself. We've had the Nkahumas right off the bat, and then Jamie has had Shadow, Sindile, hyenas playing around the hyena den, and well as some elephants. So I think Jamie's definitely won the battle of the drives there. We've had some sleepy kitties and some inyala, but it's been great to be back, and what a nice day to come back to with so much happening and so many animals around, and also fascinating to listen to what's happening with all the lions around us. So really interesting time to be here. Unfortunately, apart from moving about 150 meters, our lions haven't done much today, and hopefully they'll change that on the sunset safari and they'll be a little bit more active. But it is going to be, as I've been saying, really interesting to see what's going to be happening with all the lions at the moment, and of course to keep up in touch with the leopards. Be really nice to heard Mvula is not too far south of us, and I don't think I've seen Mvula in an age. But he is on a Dika kill on about 3 kilometers south of our sort of eastern and southern boundary junction. So he seems to be doing well. I haven't heard any updates about quarantine or Kunyuma, but I'm still hoping in the next little while I'll hopefully get to see the Anderson male. Oh, no, just I thought it was just a stretch. I just heard the grass moving. There we go, and Junior's got his head up a little bit, and we can see how he's starting to get a bit older, and you can see the darkening of his mane happening. Now, normally at this age he would have left the pride, not always, but normally, but possibly because of all this turmoil at the moment, he's found a gap to hang around with him a bit longer. Where you can see his belly, I'm pretty sure he would have eaten the majority of that zebra last night, being so much physically bigger and dominant over the females. It will definitely be sad to see him move along his way when his time comes. And hopefully he will find some other nomadic young males and form a successful coalition. So often male lion coalitions are thought to be brothers, and in recent years this has been disproved time and time again, that quite often the majority of them are unrelated males. So chatting about male lion coalitions, Blair is wondering, and she said she's heard some guides say that there's no dominance between the different coalition members, and others say there is. Is this just a different opinion? Well, Blair, if I had to throw my opinion in there, and the opinion of most lion scientists, is that there is a definite hierarchy amongst male lion coalitions, and it is changeable. So certain lions might be dominant at the beginning and not at the end, but there's definitely a hierarchy amongst male lions, and it is, if you spend a lot of time with them, it is quite easy to work out who is dominant and who is not. And as we head towards the end of this sunrise safari, thank you very much to everyone for all the welcomes back, and it's been a fantastic start, and I look forward to quite a few more, and hopefully a little bit more than sleeping lions next time, but still nice easy way to start, didn't have to track or work too hard. And thanks for all the welcome backs, thanks for all the questions, guys, we really do appreciate them. And don't forget to join us at the Sunset Safari. Hopefully then Kahumas will be on the prowl and out after some buffalo or kudu or whatever might be out there. So from Jandre and myself here on the Wendy, thanks for joining us, and we will leave you with the lions for a few seconds before you cross back to Jamie and Sindile.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on my first Safari Live drive back in business. And what a fun drive it has been, and I cannot think of a better pair of leopards to come and spend some time with than Shadow and Little Madiba. Definitely great to be able to follow up on them after the dramas of last night and what was happening around the Arethusa Dam camera. Now, over the next few months, it's going to be very interesting to see how this particular situation plays out with Little Madiba in terms of his development and his personal growth, and whether or not he actually has to gain a little bit of independence far sooner than any of us had expected him to have to. And I know that I personally, while I was on leave, was desperately following the story of how long Shadow had left poor old Madiba on his own while she was off on her various relations with the different males of the area, and I'm very, very relieved to see them back together again. So definitely be following up with these guys this afternoon on the Sunset Safari, and as always a big thank you to VM for his great camera work, even in a tricky, rather thick situation. And for now, I'm going to say a big goodbye and thank you to you all, and of course a big thank you to Nikki and Tara in FC, and Eugene for his technical genius, and I will see you tomorrow this afternoon for the Sunset Safari. Cheers for now.